Hey everyone, Tactics here with my second last Mythic boss guide for the Liberation of Undermine, and where this time we're going to be covering what is looking to be the hardest boss in the raid, Muggsy. In this video, I'm going to be going over everything that you need to know about this boss, including changes going into Mythic difficulty, my recommended weak auras, as well as how to set up the MRT Note, as well as just a walkthrough of both phases where I'll give you some tips and tricks along the way that will hopefully help you and your guild progress faster. As a note, just like the rest of the guides in this series, I'm going to be assuming here that you're familiar with the heroic mechanics just to save some time on the explanations. So let's hop right into the boss then with some mythic difficulty adjustments. To start off, one of the big ones here is how Head Honcho, how you swap between Mug and Z, now requires every single player in the raid to be on one side of the room. So how you end up handling this is you kind of assign actually two players to deal with this, one main player who's going to be doing it, and then one backup in case that player gets assigned some other mechanics just before the swap. That is important to have a backup. For us, we had our hunter do it, the BM hunter do it. Mages are also another common selection to this. You can basically have whatever range that you trust to be in charge of your side swapping here, and they just kind of stay behind, milk the swap to get to high energies, like swap at like 98 99 energy, just so that you have the maximum amount of time in this first phase. Past that, there are of course some changes to both Mug and Z. Let's actually start with Z because it's the side you're going to be doing first here. Initially, the robots that spawn here, these shockers, are going to now spawn with this electrocharge shield. So they're going to have a 99% DR on them until you actually hit them with the lightning frontal, which is from the other side. Basically, this means that these two ads that spawn then on pull are going to be active for quite a long time. And every time you spawn these ads, they're going to be active for quite a long time because they need to be hit by the Mug frontal. So you're going to be dealing with like their surging arc damage quite a bit more, which is those circles that actually go onto random players. So this is something you'll need to somewhat think about now. It's okay to actually cleave this a bit. It's not like a ton of damage, but especially later on in the fight, once the damage has kind of ramped up from the side swapping and he's got more stacks of Moxie, this can get quite dangerous, so you need to be careful later on. Other than that, the unstable crawler mines, they do a ton of extra initial damage here. As you can see, 33.5 million physical damage and 6.5 million fire damage to the initial soaker, which is going to one-shot most people. Tanks can still take a mind soak with a personal. Monks can actually take a mind soak with a Dance of the Wind. That's their physical DR stacked up and a personal. And of course, you can immune soak them with things like Bubble, with things like Hunter Turtle, that kind of stuff. So all that is how you're going to be handling the mines. Mine numbers are also going to be increasing every spawn. So initially, you're going to have 4 mines on the very first cast, and then it's going to be 5, and then 6. And then you're going to be phase transitioning, so then you're going to be dealing with 6, and then like a metric ton of them after that on the very last mindset of the fight. So that's the changes to the Z side, which is where you're going to start. The Mug side has a couple other changes. The one is the jails. First off, the jails are going to start at 2 jails like normal, but then every cast of jails is again going to increase the number of jails by 1. So you want to kind of do this mechanic as little as possible. So you have as few jails. You're going to go 2 jails first, then 3 jails, and then finally in phase 2, you're going to be dealing with the 4 jail overlap, which is the kind of hardest section of the fight there, and where most guilds have the majority of their wipes. There are some weak auras to handle the jail assignments and how you handle all that stuff. I'll show that in a second here, but that's just how it changes. Other thing, the goon, if it enrages, you can no longer kill it because it gets a massive 99% DR. So goon enraging is now a guaranteed wipe, whereas on normal heroic, you could kind of salvage it and end up killing them. The other thing here is the Frost Shatter boots. The big thing about them is that they will now have the slow on you indefinitely until you touch the hot mess, which is the group soak from the Z side. So again, if that's on the ground, you just run over, you touch it, it'll clear your slow, and then you can go about your day from then on. So important here, again, interacting with some of the mechanics from the opposite side to actually deal with them. Those are the phase mechanics. The only other thing to keep in mind now is that in the intermission, you're going to get this giant electrocution matrix that spawns a beam that cuts the room in half and is a one-shot beam. Anyone who touches that beam will instantly die outside of. You can blink over it, I believe, and you can immune through it. But if you actually touch the beam, you are guaranteed dead. And this persists for the remainder of the fight, just rotates slowly counterclockwise in a circle, meaning you only have half the room to actually play with as soon as the intermission starts. And then once you get into stage 2, like I said, you have all the mechanics, all the mythic changes you saw in phase 1, as well as dealing with the electrocution matrix itself. So no brand new mechanics in stage 2, but everything else has been adjusted, and there are some pretty nasty overlaps in that phase. Now let's talk weak auras here. Opening it up again, we're going to be using the liquid weak aura pack here. Recommend using that. Link is here. It has all the explanations if you need them in this pack here, but I will still go through it because there is some confusing things specifically about orientation, and that's something that we learned a little bit, and we had some mistakes early on about how to actually orient yourself for these weak auras to be correct. So the first is the jail positioning. So you can basically assign people to jails. Here's what they actually did on their kill, and you want a limited number of people in these jails because, one, you don't need that much damage to actually kill the guy inside of it, and two, you actually don't want too many people left inside, because even though after a recent nerf the knockback from killing the goon inside will break walls, you actually don't want too many walls to be broken, because it can mess up your frost shatter boots and hitting the spears through the walls, because that's how you actually want to deal with most of the walls. So to do that, you need to do things like assign a limited number of people to be inside that can all escape. For example, right, warlocks can port out, monks can transcend out, mages can get out as well, any void elf can get out, that kind of thing. So we actually had a few people swap to void elf. We had hunters, I think warriors, and our rogue swap to void elf to give them a way to get out, because other classes have a way and they do not. The other thing you can do here is there's another weak aura down here where you can assign rescues and life grips. If you do it at the right time, you can grip someone out. If they're the chosen person, they're not supposed to be there, they're not one of the assigned people, you can use this to grip them out. Now, in terms of who you're putting in the jails here, usually in the early ones, it was like a healer and some sort of DPS. So here they did a healer and warlock in both. I also have our note here. We did a healer and a warlock, and then a healer and our windwalker monk, because we were only playing one warlock on this boss fight. Similarly here, we had 3 DPS assigned to go to one, a healer and 2 DPS and another, and then a healer and a DPS with CDs, I believe, in the last one. And then for the final set in P2, we had a DPS and a tank. We had 2 DPS and a healer. We had 2 DPS and a healer, and then we had 2 DPS alone. So this was like really dangerous for the 2 DPS. They needed to use like personals, and also I think like they got externals, and they used darkness as well while they were in there to kill it quickly, because there were no healer obviously in there to actually help them out. Now let's talk a little bit here about the orientation, because what this weak aura is going to do is going to pop up this map exactly like this, and the numbers here indicate which line has what. So for example, in the second one, the first people you put in this line are actually in this jail. The second people get put in this jail. The third people get put in this jail. That's just what the numbers are for. But when you're actually getting the jails, if you get a jail, and you will start saying either left, right, front left, back left, depending on the set, back right, front right. How you actually orient yourself is you are pretending you are in like the middle of the room, facing whatever wall the boss is at. So for example here, I can actually use our raid plan as well for the first set of jails. Actually, this is up, whatever. It's going to be here. This is left and this is right, because you're imagining that you're in the middle of the room facing the wall the boss is at. So this is left, this is right. So 1 is left, 2 is right. Now the next set of jails is on the opposite side of the room. So you're going to flip your orientation to be, again, as if you're in the middle facing the outside of the room. And it's actually even labeled here. So the front is always going to be the wall. So you're in the middle, you're facing the outside. This is the left for you. This is the right, and this is the back left. So back left, front left, and right. And that's how the orientation works. It's always as if you are in the middle of the room facing the wall where the boss is at. And this red circle can help you orient, especially on the second set, because that's where one of the group soaks is going to be. And so you can use that to help orient you. The front one is always going to be up against the wall here. And similar for the last set, you're going to have back left, front right, back right, and it's oriented with the facing the wall that the boss is at from the center of the room. Now, this is a little bit confusing because the orientation for the Frost Shatter boots is actually the kind of the opposite of that. So here's the Frost Shatter boots. It'll tell you whether you should hide behind the jail to your left or your right. This assumes that you are standing in the fire on the edge of the room facing the middle. So again, if you look at these pictures here, here's the fire puddle. So you're going to be baiting in this to clear your Frost Shatter boots as an example, and that's why you'd be there. So it assumes that you are standing in this circle on the edge of it, looking at the boss here. And so if it assigns you left, you would go to diamond. If it assigns you right, you would go to star to break your spears. And similar, the opposite way, if you go early up here, right? If you get these boots on the first one, you're in this fire. It assumes that you are facing the boss from the wall, and so left would instead be this one, and right would be this one. It's a little confusing, but it's all about where you personally are supposed to be oriented at that moment in the fight. So your left and right will get mixed up a little bit throughout the fight, but it should make sense if you are positioned correctly. The only other thing to talk about here are the actual soak assignments. There's another WeakAuras here for this where you can assign your groups of soaking. The way you want to do this is you want 15 players to be in the odd soak, so the first soak and the third soak. And then you want 3 immune players and your 2 tanks to be in the even soak, so the second soak and the fourth soak, because 5 is the minimum number of players required to not instantly die to this mechanic, and tanks can take that relatively safely. So you just need 3 immunes on top of that, and that is going to get you balanced throughout the rest of the fight. The even set is the one that overlaps with the dangerous jails at the end of the fight, which is why you want as few people as possible needing to actually do that mechanic, which is why you put the 3 immunes with the tanks in that one. All right, you've seen me going through the raid plan as well here. I'm going to link this down in the description below. It has our initial strategy to this boss fight. It is 2 distinct different raid plans, which is, it's, I guess raid plan caps out at 20 slides. So, we have 2 different raid plans. Look them both down below if you want to go through them. I'm not going to go through them slide by slide here. Instead, I'm just going to talk through the boss fight and walk you through it. But if you want the visuals, this is here. We have some differences, I think, like in the intermission, it's a little different, but I'll walk through our strategy for that. The other thing here to just quickly note is our orientation for bomb soaks, just to make sure you have an even spread of players to soak in their general area whenever you are doing the bomb soaks. This is going to be a common wipe, I think, of just missing a soak, for example, or getting your bomb pops a little bit wrong. So we had this kind of assigned orientation for each of the sets. Again, just based on where the boss was in the room, which then changed slightly for the 1 bomb set in the last phase, because we kind of focused on soaking bombs in these 3 areas and tried to generally ignore bombs in this back right area, just because of the positioning for later on in the boss fight. So it changed for phase 2, but just a little thing that can be helpful. I don't think this is super mandatory, but it was helpful to make sure we always had coverage spread throughout the area for those bomb soaks. Now, before getting in the boss fight, let's quickly talk comp a little bit here, because this is going to be your big 5 heal fight. 2 tank, 5 heal, 13 DPS is what we ran on this boss fight. I could see if they potentially deal nerfs to the boss's damage output, and you get enough damage to push this boss 1 phase earlier. I could see you potentially dropping to a 4th healer and that making the boss fight actually easier. But at least with the current state of the boss, we did 5 heal it. For the first phase, a lot of the time you had healers DPSing and not healing because there's not a ton to heal in that first phase. But basically the fight just ramps up over time with the additional dot from swapping sides, with the additional moxie stacks, where it gets very, very scary near the end of phase 1 through the intermission and all of phase 2. And that's why you have those 5 healers there, to have a very, very solid healer rotation. Now there's a ton of different healing comps you can use to get through this fight. Like we had a disc priest, 2 monks, a resto shaman, and a resto druid. There's been a ton of different healing comps in terms of actual healing CDs for your group. I recommend checking out Lorgs. You can check out things based on spec. Like for example, let's say you have a holy paladin in your group. You can go holy paladin. You can swap the boss here to actually be the correct one. It's over here, Mugsy, and you can just go through. You can see cooldown timings. You can do this for your healing comp to see where they place cooldowns, because it's going to vary depending on your comp. So it's not super useful necessarily to give you ours, but this website is super useful. I'll link it down in the description below for you guys to actually check out. But like I said, 5 healers, really to handle the healing at the end of the fight when it's really ramped up. It's super dangerous. There's a ton of damage going out. People are spread out. People are in jails. Lots of line of sight stuff, right? So having 5 healers was very, very useful for that. But early on in the fight, a lot of the time they're kind of doing damage, right? Now let's get through the fight. I am going to have a second POV link down in the description below from Banchers, the Hunter POV. I'll go through the tank POV for most of the fight, though. This is my POV, just because I can see most of the stuff, except for some niche things where I'll swap over. And let's go. So like I said, initially, you want to start all on the metal side of the room. We want to trigger that side first. If you have people over on the dirt side, and that actually causes you to do the dirt side first, it's just a wipe. So make sure you don't do that. Start on metal side, boom, boss starts, uncontrolled destruction. And we're going to start actually at the back of the room. As you see, we're positioned opposite the entrance, so we're dragging the boss towards the back, and that's where we're going to do our first group soak. And also this is where we're going to pop our first mines in terms of how mines are being soaked. Now, the main way this is going to be done is a combination of tanks and immunities. Like I was talking about first, there's a massive initial hit on this now. So tanks with personals can soak them. Monks in a pinch can soak them. We're going to have me as the prop paladin soaking the majority of mines here because I can CDR my bubble enough that I have it up for every mine set. If you do not have a protection paladin, you will need to use a combination of whatever paladin you have using their bubble to soak and a hunter using turtle to soak. They'll have to alternate, I believe, every single time to actually make this happen. So it is doable without a protection paladin. It's just a bit more involved. You need multiple people doing it instead of just one person. Now, this mindset is the easiest. It's only 4 mines. So we just have the other tank pop the first one, and then I will pop the remaining ones with bubble. So there it is. And the key here is popping relatively quickly. You see, we don't leave a lot of time, like maybe 2 seconds between the casts of these, the detonations of these mines. Just enough time for the healers to heal off the healing absorb and dot that it applies, but not enough time that our healing cooldowns expire. And that's the big thing. This first one is the easiest to meet that timer, so I actually went kind of slow there just to make sure it was safe. But once you get to the next one, that starts to get a little bit harder, but it's really the last one of phase 1 and the first one of phase 2 where it's very, very difficult. And you really want to make sure you are detonating this quickly. Now, if you have people accidentally detonate mines, this is, again, probably a common wipe condition. They don't see the brown circle of the spawn. They accidentally step in a mine. Likely they're dead unless they're a monk or already had a defensive running. But also this refreshes your healing absorb, and this is very, very bad because if you like half healed off the healing absorb and another mine got blown up, it actually fully refreshes that first healing absorb and then gives you a full second stack. So it's very, very bad to double pop mines unless you're in a really powerful like disc ramp, for example, and then they can get you through it. But still, you really want to avoid that. It is exceptionally dangerous and probably one of the biggest causes of wipes on these actual bomb sets. So we're going through here. Like I said, I immune soaked the remaining 3 after the other tank did the first one. We spread out, soak all those mines. And the big thing here is tunnel soaks. And I cannot emphasize this more. When mines are out, tunnel avoiding the mines and getting soaks, because we already stopped damage for like 30 plus seconds in this first phase. We'll talk about that when we get to it, but there is a stop damage here. So to minimize the number of wipes you have on mindsets, just ignore doing damage, hard tunnel on baiting the mines in close to the boss first off, and then avoiding those baits and getting into soaks, and that will save you so many wipes. Moving on, here is the first group soak. This is the 15 people soak, so they all get in that soak, and then they move out. And you can see here again, important, when this is all happening, our hunter, who is assigned with the green triangle here, never swaps sides. He does never make sure he is the one in charge of swapping sides. So it's very important that he never swaps sides. And the only time he would swap sides is if he gets targeted by the frontal here. And that's when our mage, who is right behind him, is our backup, would stay instead. So that's kind of that situation. If the hunter doesn't get picked by the frontal, the mage leaves immediately. That's how that works. Now we get to the line into frontal. For us, we always point the line left, and then we always point the frontal right. Again, this is assuming you're in the middle facing the boss, so this line goes left. The other tank stands in it. The non-paladin tank here stands in it. We get a bleed cleanse or a dwarf ratio on that on the tank, ASAP, to just remove it. And then the frontal goes to the right here, and whereas the circle person goes over here. This is important. you need externals on both. So you have externals applied to the person targeted by the line and the circle, and you also have externals applied to the person with the frontal. Now, in terms of how this works, assuming you are milking this swap to be at around 99, 98, the frontals are going to be 1 minute apart. So we put a cocoon and 1 minute sack on every single frontal, and that'll be good every single time. The line attack, that only happens in one of the phases, right? So that's only going to be 2 minutes apart. So you have a bit more leeway in what you assign to that, but you want to make sure you have a DR specifically assigned to that, that covers both the line initial hit as well as the circle explosion, because you want to have people saving personals for jail assignments. So we've opted to do all externals on these, so they don't need to worry about this. The only time you would need to worry about this is if you get the last two frontals of the fight. That's where, if you have a personal, you want to make sure you press it. We kind of throw a bunch more, any externals we have, empty the bag on those last two frontals of the fight, because they kind of happen back to back after the jails. Before these frontals in phase one, externals on both the line and the frontal, every single one you want externals. Now we make sure everyone is on dirt side. So our hunter, boom, at 99 immediately swaps, and we're going into dirt. And again, now he's just swapping his roles. He stays on dirt. Everyone else can go wherever the heck they want. And we're staying right up against this fire because, like I mentioned, frost boots, right? The frost boots are going to come. We want to bait the frost boots into the fire, so we want to position near this fire to break those. So first jails are going out. You can see, again, I am a tank. I'm in the opposite orientation of the raid. So the left is going to go here. The right is going to go here. Everyone else, orientation-wise, would be in the middle of the room facing the boss. That's how you decide left and right. So they're hitting the boss. They're going to put these on either side of the fire. The jails are going to go. You can see the life or the rescue actually that happened there, because the person assigned to this jail was not actually supposed to be inside of it. They just got debuffed with the jail. So that's how the things work. You can also use a void elf to get out, like I said. You can also use a life grip to get out, like I said, or whatever other method you have to get out depending on your spec. And you just have the two people in there hitting those mobs. Mages can do their shenanigans as well with ignite spreading, and altering and all that stuff. So they'll do that as well to kill those mobs easily. And then they're going to, the people in here are going to make sure that they port out or get out before or once the goon is killed, to actually avoid breaking any walls so that frost boots have more things to hit. Tank frontal is going to go up against this wall. This is the paladin strategy. So you can see I am actually completely and totally stuck in this area. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run away to the wall initially. This is important because the gold starts where you get hit. So if I move all the way to the wall, the gold starts at the wall instead of filling up the initial fire part where the rest of the party is going to be, or the rest of the raid's going to be with gold. That would be bad. So I move to the wall. The gold starts here. And I'm going to, when my buff duration gets low enough, I'm going to spell ward myself so that I am going to not get stunned, and all the gold will spawn here. It will spread out to overtake the jails, but we'll be gone by that point, so it doesn't matter. Now, if you are not a paladin, what you would need to do here is you would need to have enough space to run up this wall, and you would basically fill up this back area and then run up this wall and fill up this area along the wall here with gold. It is doable without a prop paladin. It is. Most guilds, I think, are running a prop paladin at this point, but as you get later in the season, you're going to have more and more comp issues, so you can do this without a prop paladin. You just need space to run out of this jail, so this jail placement would need to be such that there is space for the tank there. But like I said, prop paladin is here doing his thing. The rest of the raid, I can show you this on the other POV, is going to be in the fire. Here it is. Tank frontal is going to go out. The rest of the raid is going to immediately after this tank frontal bait near the fire. Boots are coming. You see the weak aura from the liquid pack, frost shutter boots. If you get picked, you dip in the fire. You're immediately cleared. And he actually did get picked here. So he got told to go left. And again, the positioning is if you are in the fire facing out. So he's left, so he goes this way. And the goal with these arrows is to make sure that you point them through two walls. And we have all the walls active because when these goons died, the players ported out, so none of the walls actually broke. So they're going to hide behind two walls here. If there are broken walls, you need to make sure that you find two walls to be hidden behind, because if you are stacked up, basically, you want to make sure that both players have walls broken, right? So in this case, the icicles are a bit separated, so it's not a big deal. They're going to break these two different walls. But if these icicles were stacked, being here would be the only safe place, because it would, the first one would break this wall and the second one would break this wall. So that's just how the icicle breaking works. That's kind of how all the icicle breaking works. You want to make sure you are doing in phase 1 anyways, that you are hiding behind 2 walls. In phase 2, you hide behind the mines. Is that how you deal with those? Going back to my POV though. Get out of here. And now we are positioning the boss, after this happens, to frontal the 2 shockers that have been up the whole time, right? Because they've had a shield. Frontal's going to go out. And the goal of this frontal, you are always pointing this one through the 2 shockers. So here, and there's also a shocker on the far end, so that's your goal. Again, externals is the 1-minute external set, so I sacked the target of this one, and we own these shockers, and then this is also where our hunter would be swapping. Boom. And again, if the hunter gets picked by that frontal, our mage is there to cover. And now we move all the way across to kill the other shocker, and this is where we're going to bait our next set of mines. We have 1 additional mine here. It's going to be 5 mines, so I'm going to take the first one with a personal. And it's important here. You can see I identify where the brown circles are, and I see, okay, that's where it is. I'm going to stand inside the brown circle to instantly start our detonation so we can have a very fast cadence. So I find it, boom, first one goes off. I call second tank to detonate, boom, second tank, and then I immune the remaining ones. The reason why I don't immune the first one is because you can run into a problem where your immune runs out. That's very, very bad. And so, you know, especially after the first set, soaking the first couple mines without your immune as tanks helps you to ensure that your bubble is both up at CDR in time and that it just covers the remaining soaks. Next up, we have the immune rocket. So this is going all the way to the edge of the room here. Assuming you had no deaths early on in the fight, this is only going to go on one of the 3 people that didn't go into the first soak, because they're going to be immuning this soak. So because they're the only eligible targets. If one of them got picked for the first soak, that's not a big deal. You still have eligible targets and they're immuning anyway, so they're not going to die to this. Tanks don't immune this. Tanks just, you know, you can personal. I think I popped literally nothing besides consecrate. It's not really a ton of damage for the tank, so they're fine with it. And then we're back to doing the line into the frontal. And like I said, line is always going left here, and frontal is always going right. So circle is going to go left as well. We're killing the Rocketeer. Important to own these Rocketeers, by the way. Again, boss damage, kind of irrelevant. You're going to be stopping anyways. These Rocketeers, the Disintegration Beam owns. You want to make sure you are owning those mobs. Frontal off to the side safely. Our mage and our hunter are here, and they're just crossing. Early, mage early, hunter boom. We're crossing. This is going to be our 3 jail set. And like I said, we have markers on the ground here. This is back left, front left, and then front right is over here on the other side of the fire. Orientation, center of the room, facing the wall. For this one, I don't have spell warding, of course, so I'm going to be going for a run to clear the gold debuff. And again, you have that fire in the middle of the jails here that you are going to be using to clear your frost boots. That actually does remind me as well, for both the first sets of jails and the second sets of jails, it is actually important that you don't kill your goon too fast, because if you kill the goon too fast and you port out, that makes you an eligible target for the frost boots. While you're inside, you are not an eligible target, and so they actually would slow their damage sometimes to make sure that they killed the goon after the frost boots had already went out. Because if you get picked and you're not pre-positioned to be in the fire like everyone else in the raid is, it can be very problematic. It's easy to die that way if you don't have like extreme mobility, because you're going to be slowed, you're not going to be in the fire, you're going to have that slow and have to make sure you get behind a jail in time, right? It's very messy, so you want to make sure you don't kill those goons too quickly, because you're not going to be pre-positioned to clear that fire. So things assigned, you got the back left, front left, the right immediately went out. Everyone's going to their assigned jails. Bosses between them. And again, tank frontal is going to come out. I'm going to move to the edge of the room here. Tank frontal, boom. I'm going to go for a run. You can see the other boss movement. He's going to be moving the boss just far enough, surely. Oh, here it is. Perfect. Wow. Perfect. Tank frontal goes out. He's going to be moving up the boss to the fire initially. Boom, so people can pre-position. And there's a couple things with this fire. You notice everyone is in the fire, but they're not taking excess damage. That's a big thing. The fire damage actually is a lot. You don't want to AFK in this fire. But the neat thing about this is we put this fire up on this platform here, and it actually kind of Z-axis, so it looks like you're in the effect, but you're actually not unless you jump. If you jump, you are now in this effect. So you can actually AFK in the fire on the bottom step here. And then if you get chosen for Frost Shatter Boots, you can then jump to clear your debuff. You didn't get picked here, but you can see you did jump. And that would clear your debuff. Problem is if you are a short race, short races have a problem for some reason, I guess. So, don't be a short race if you want to do this. But that is a neat little tech to help you clear this. You can just jump on the bottom step and already be in it. And then you can see again, people are going left, people are going right. With the icicle clears, you got the jail on this side and the jail on this side. Go back here to me running in a circle up the side of the room here, running back. And you can see the boots getting assigned, and then they're going to move to get in position to frontal the 2 shockers. And again, make sure you are in the path of 2 walls. I think very dangerous there. Yeah, so he was in. This is what happens if you're not in the path of 2 walls. If you just get unlucky and you are the second person, you will just die. So he was the second person. The other guy's icicle broke the wall, so he dies there. So make sure you get behind 2 walls, not just one. Frontal again, going straight across, hitting both of the mobs here, and we're going to kill them. And notice the time here. So we are at 4 minutes. The phase transition happens at 40%. At this point, 2 minutes are holding their CDs. And at this point, we are slowing boss damage. We're not stopping yet, but we are slowing our boss damage because we don't want to push the boss early. We want to push the boss at exactly 5 minutes, which gives us our pot with all of our cooldowns because we held our 2 minutes, as well as our bloodlust and all that stuff to maximize damage in phase 2, because that's where the DPS race starts. So we're slowing our damage at this point, but this is kind of where if you can actually push the boss at this point, I think potentially that would be the winning strategy later on in the season. That would drastically reduce your damage intake because you'd have 1 less stack of the raid dot. You'd be able to skip one of the most dangerous mindsets of the fight. So later on in the season, if you're able to do that, I think that's going to be good, especially with nerfs to this boss. But at least currently, it's not a feasible strategy to actually get. We're 8% behind doing full damage the whole time, right? So, but maybe with a few more stacks of the raid buff and a little bit more gear would be possible. But we're basically, you can see, I like don't care about boss damage now. It's totally irrelevant. So you see me going off, hitting the shocker. You see me hitting the immune shocker as well sometimes because I just need to kind of generate CDR. I'm going to be doing more of that after, but that's a neat tech. When you are holding here, if you can just need to ramp up or you need to CDR abilities, hitting these shockers that are immune is something that you can do and still do your rotation on them while not cleaving the boss. So that's a tip. And then we get to this big mindset. So we're going to have 6 minds here. So again, we're going tank first, and we actually go monk second. So our monk with a fully stacked up, I think it's called Dance to the Wind, the Fizz DR they have, and a personal is going to soak a mine and be totally fine. Then we do the second tank, it's going to soak a mine, and then I'm going to immune the remaining 3. So I'm going to start again. Important to start in a mine circle. Personal, boom, soak the first one. And we want to go fast here because we want to have them all detonated in the disc ramp and our healing CD. So boom, second one, call the third one. Then we go 4th here, and that was a missed mind soak, by the way. That's what we all almost died to. We had a missed mind soak. You want to make sure you are tunneling the mind soaks here. Luckily, our disc ramp is very, very powerful. We have a lot of defensives here to make this easier on us, and we do end up surviving that even though we missed a soak. And the goal here is to have all the mines popped by the time this soak happens. I did pause slightly because we had the missed mind soak, so we would have gone a little bit faster, but you want this all the mines to be detonated before the circle kind of appears. That's kind of the timeline. I'm over here hitting the shocker for CDR. It's important as a paladin to CDR so that I actually have Ardent in time and Bubble in time. Ardent's actually going to be fine. It's Goak, sorry, that I'm going to be CDRing, not Ardent. Goak and Bubble are the 2 that are suspicious timers if you don't have good uptime. So hitting the shocker between where the Rocketeer, of course, killing the Rocketeer, and you can see the boss at 40, like 0.5%. We're just like not hitting the boss here. Frontals, as you can see, the circle is going to go into the corner here away from people by this other jail. That's where the line goes, and then the frontal goes back again to this side away from the raid because we are pre-positioning for the intermission. You can see here I'm going out here. I'm full hitting this shocker so I can get my CDR. And the biggest thing here is you want to make sure your person never swaps. You want to make sure that whoever it is never swaps on this phase because you do not want the boss to get an extra stack of the raid dot. That is very, very dangerous, very, very bad. Too much damage at the end of the fight. So you want to make sure you push the boss, in the next 5 or so seconds. If he starts casting his full energy cast, You can interrupt it by pushing him below 40%. That's fine. You can also push him a couple seconds early here. As long as you're pushing beyond 5 minutes, you're kind of fine. So he's going to hit the full energy and we push. And this is pots. This is bloodlust. This is all cooldowns because we were holding our cooldowns here and we were just owning the boss. Now, how this works, there's basically two different strategies on how people handle this one. This is ours. Basically, we always start holding the boss just past on the dirt side, and you see ranged is on the baiting towards the fire puddle. He always rotates clockwise and then counterclockwise and then clockwise in terms of the beams, and this will bait the charge towards this way. This is strictly based on positioning, by the way. It's not based on ranged baiting. It's not based on anyone baiting. It's strictly boss positioning that controls where he's going to be charging here. So he charges up there, and we're all by the fire, so we just all rotate together. Now, something you can do to limit the number of blue circles on the side with all the people is you can have things like mages, tanks, monks even go to the other side. Like you see some people, I think it's our mages and a monk on the other side, to put some blue circles over there. It makes it a little bit easier to dodge. But basically just moving as a group here. Don't lead the group too much and avoid these blue circles. Now, we're not going to move the boss. Some people move the boss here. We're not going to move the boss. This means he's going to charge this direction. And so all the range are going to go back to fire. And this makes it fairly straightforward. It's always go back to fire. Go back to fire, bait by fire. I am going to be a tank and go through the line here. Boom. And they're, again, now it's rotating counterclockwise. So they beat it at fire. He charges this way. They rotate with it here. They're close to the beam. Makes it very easy. Rotating here, rotating here. And then from here, again, we don't move the boss. It's going to force him to charge towards the metal area. Everyone's going to be baited towards the fire. And then the boss is going to rotate clockwise. It's going to be easy to dodge. Very simple, very consistent. Always bait towards the fire if you're, one of the most of the raid, and you just rotate with the lightning beam. If you ever do need to cross, the beam that does the least damage is the non-lightning beam, the gun. That does least damage. It's also physical, so you can pop a personal or be a monk and walk through it kind of deal. But still, it's very scary. You can see the damage going out in this phase is now very, very high. We have all the stacks. We got a ton of moxie. And now we're going to the mine detonation. So this is where it gets really, really, really scary. Healing CDs. Again, check out the healing CD timings. I believe this is our disc ramp for this one. And we're going to be, again, detonating mines here. We're not going to detonate all of them. There's only going to be 6 mines here because we didn't go back to the dirt side. So we don't get the extra mines, just 6 mines here. And we're not going to be popping them all because we want to save 2 of them to hit with frost boots. So we only detonate 4 mines here. So it's not like we're detonating a ton, but it's the mine detonation in combination with all the raid damage going out that makes this very scary. You also have to deal with, of course, this electrocution beam that you've been seeing. Again, like I mentioned earlier, it cuts off half of the room. So mines go, and again, very important. Get in the first mine. Depending on where this first mine spawns, don't get knocked into the electrocution beam. Be careful. I detonate the first one with a personal. He detonates the second one, and I go detonate the last 2. And the goal here is, again, detonating the ones that aren't in the back area of the room. So I'm detonating these 2 close ones here, leaving one up and one up over there. That one is rooted as well. Again, another tip, whenever mines go out, you can throw out things like root totems, throw out things like mass root just to make them a little bit easier to avoid. And we're now making sure that our icicles hit all of the crawlers. Crawlers are hit with the icicles. And then we get the scary jail set. This is the crazy overlap of the fight. You had to make sure, first off, these mines want to be detonated before Frost Boots is cast. That's your timer. Then Frost Boots gets cast. You have 2 fire puddles here, right? You have this one here, which can be pre-positioned a little bit towards, but otherwise you need mobility to get there. You have this one also back here. You don't necessarily need to clear ASAP. You can clear a little bit later. The biggest thing is to make sure that you are hiding behind a mine without actually getting hit by it. That's also why roots are very useful. Would have been much nicer if this one was rooted as well, but luckily, we were able to hit it anyways. And you want to make sure you hit both mines. If you don't hit one of the mines, you want to make sure your druid casts a regular entangling roots on it, just so it stays rooted until it enrages. That is very, very important because you don't want this mine walking into your group. Then you have all the jails. The orientation is as if you were in the middle of the room facing this wall. So down here is going to be back left. This is front left, front right, back right. Going to their various jail assignments. And I'm going to then have the boss because the other tank is going into the jail here, and the frontal's coming soon-ish. So I taunt the boss early here because you don't want the boss going into the jail. And again, this orientation is one of two strategies. Basically, how we did it is we then have this rocket come step up here and be able to hit all three of these jails to break the front walls out, so that these players are free to leave and the assigned player is free to remain and finish off the goon. It also opens up for things like healing and stuff like that, because you're thinly spread here. You're thinly spread here. Your healers are sometimes LOS, so it's very, very, very scary. This is the DPSer solo one, I think, where it's just the Demon Hunter and the Warlock. So we assigned, like, I think a Cocoon on the Warlock. The AMZ's in there. I think they drop a Darkness in there to live because they have no healer and they're on their own, right? So that's what they're doing out there. Biggest thing, if you had a death and someone didn't get into this soak, the big 15-man soak that happens at the end of phase 1, that player is an eligible target for this soak, which is supposed to go on one of the immuners. So if that person, you need to identify if that happened, and that person needs to be prepared to, one, get out of their jail immediately if they get chosen by the soak. So, if they're like a warrior or a hunter or something, they need to make sure they have Void Elf available, or that they get rescued out or something like that. Because if they get picked by this group soak and they're like stuck in this jail, it's just a wipe. So ideally this goes on the immune people, but again, if you have an early death, it does reset your debuff, make you an eligible target. So beware. This group soak, important. This positioning is important. You want it to cleave all three jails, but you do want to make sure that there is safe place in each jail, because there is someone in each jail that doesn't want to be in the soak. Like, for example, our Windwalker does not want to be in the soak. We have, I think, a Mistweaver in here that does not want to be in the soak. So you need to give them space to not be in the soak while still being in their jail. Boss positioning, also important here. We want to make sure that the boss is not fully overlapped by this circle, so that the DPS not in the soak are free to hit the boss. Like the warrior, for example, is free to execute the boss while not being in the soak, because again, this is the immune soak. So immunes are going off. Pop a personal, breaks these walls, so the other tank is now free. I'm going to now take this frontal and point it between these jails. Very important. These people do not get hit. They know that the frontal is coming in here. Again, if you're on these sides of the jails, you are safe. I get frontaled. Sometimes you get knocked into a jail, and you can feel free to help here. Again, this is a paladin shenanigan, so I'm going to spell warding. If you were not a paladin, you would need to be running around here, probably into this corner, with these goons that get smashed through here, that kind of thing. But I'm a paladin, so I'm going to hang out here, help with this goon, and everyone else is going to be going now towards the bottom area of this boss. I end up hitting the Rocketeer a little bit, because this guy is a known culprit to just murder individual people. We're cleaving underneath the boss here. You're going to be getting the frontals in a second here. First off is the line attack, and then is going to be the lightning frontal as well. I think the lightning frontal might have already happened. So yeah, that might have already happened. You want to hit these shockers. I think we did miss this shocker. And now is where we're also going straight into soaking of these mines. So this is where it gets weird. So this is currently bugged. It's been bugged the entire duration of the patch. Maybe it'll get fixed. But basically the hitbox on these mines does not match where the mines actually are when they are enraged. Some weird stuff going on. I don't know exactly how it works, but basically if you approach the mine from behind and start wiggling a little bit from behind, you will usually find it. So that's what we did. Our turtle here is going to be popping this, because of course I used my immune earlier, so we always use a turtle to soak these last mines. They spawn pretty far. The other thing that can happen, this happened to us on a few pulls. Sometimes the mines just bug out and don't move. This is the enraged mine. It's not moving. Obviously, you want to make sure you were soaking these mines on this side of the beam. This one would be closer if it was here, and we'd be soaking it up here. And you can see these, even though we had super far soaks, we were all able to get them. Because this mine's bugged, we just don't need to do that soak. So that's fine. We don't end up doing that soak, but you would usually be doing 2 soaks here if the mine doesn't bug out. So a little lucky on their one. Spray and pray goes towards the wall here. Basically, like any wall you can get. This wall's fine, this wall's fine, this wall's fine. Just don't cast it like in this arc, and you're good. Again, externals are going out here. I threw my sack out on that person. And now this is the just don't pop a mine. From here on out, if you just don't pop a mine, you are safe. You want to bait these first few spawns of mines close to the boss. Stutter step, stutter step, stutter step, because there's a ton of mine spawns here. Boom, mines are spawning, mines are spawning. You don't want to go too fast because there's going to be a frost boots, and you want to be able to clear on these fire puddles. So we're moving, moving, moving. Boss is coming with us here. And from here, literally the only rule is don't pop a mine. If you get these frost boots, you want to clear on the fire. Again, you have 2 fire options. You can clear here. You can go over here and do the jump thing that I talked about earlier. Roots immediately go out on these mines to keep them stationary as possible. Mass entanglement is great here. Root totem is great here. Whatever you got, keep these things rooted. You get picked by the frost boots. You need to clear your frost boots, and your goal is to either hit a mine or die. Those are your 2 options. You hit a mine with the frost, or you die. If you can't clear in time, and you're going to touch a mine or something like that, you would rather die than touch a mine, right? That is the rule. I think we're actually going to touch a mine here and get really lucky. So, you know, this kill pull was a bit lucky for us. But yeah, you want to never touch a mine. You would rather die than touch a mine, so don't risk it. You can see our icicles clearing fire, going all the way around. And again, if they're rooted, it's much easier. And we're going around here, and we are going to accidentally touch a mine at the end there and get all the lucky soaks right on top of the group. But you can see, right, you don't need everyone alive to kill this. So if you ever are chosen with a, hey, I can get a soak or I can die, I can get a soak and die, or can miss a soak, get the soak and you die. This end, do I hit a mine or do I die? You just choose to die, don't hit a mine. And you can meet this DPS check at the end where you are ignoring these, the ton of mines here that spawn at the very end of fight. But there we have it, guys. Hopefully this video helps you and your group get this very difficult boss down. If it does, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like it. Mythic Galliwix guide coming out very soon. Advanced dungeon guides for people pushing for the 0.1% title also coming out soon, and much more. Of course, none of this would be possible without all of my amazing Patreons. So thank you guys so much for your support, and I'll see everyone in the next video.